Caitrin considered often that she and her sister were lucky to have a home, and a bed, and food for their bellies. There was little else she needed. They travelled west from their home north of Perth to Kildare, along the River Teith, where they would spend the next month with Dorcas's sister, as they did every fall. As always, they moved about the country with only Peggy and two outriders, Bernard and Fergus on this occasion, these men being more of a hopeful deterrent to anyone with an idea to accost them, rather than actually having an ability to defend them if they should be set upon. Those two men regularly were employed by Caitrin Lorne, and within the tiny hamlet where they lived, which was a good 3 leagues from Perth itself. They were the only available men to make the trek, not beholden to a wife or family. Caitrin did not dare ask again how much longer until they reached Kildare. Already she had asked twice today, and the sun was not yet directly above their heads. She listened to Mary feign an interest in Fergus, supposing, as she sometimes did, that the Lornes allowed Mary to behave so shamelessly, as it did regularly benefit them. Not a day might pass without some hopeful swain idling around their modest home, and Caitrin Lorne was not above putting them to use. Lorne had once said to Caitrin, "You're a wee bit finer than Mary to look upon. If you'd care to lose the scowls and deign to make conversation with the lads, we'd have all our labours attended all the livelong day." He chuckled robustly at whatever it was he found humorous about that, and had sauntered away, not waiting for a reply, though Caitrin's narrowed gaze had followed him darkly. She and Mary were not true sisters. They were related only by circumstance, and not by blood. But neither of the Lornes had bothered to explain this to Caitrin nor Mary, and as they'd always called them sisters, they thought of themselves as such. It was only about 3 years ago that the truth had come out, inadvertently, and not without much misplaced cackling from Dorcas and Gordon, who evidently had never given it much thought. As surprised as Mary and Caitrin had been to discover they were not true siblings, so great was the shock of the Lornes, who couldn't conceive how they hadn't known. Caitrin had been riddled with guilt at that time, and sometimes since then, as her initial reaction had been one of relief. Mary was difficult to love, being as self-serving as Dorcas often was, but with a sharper tongue that cut without warning. Such relief she'd known then, her first thought being, I don't have to love her. She did, of course, as 5 and 10 years of being raised together did not dissipate with only some irrelevant statements that they shared no blood. Aye, she loved her still, but only felt less guilty on those days when it proved so difficult. Peggy had not been known to them before she'd come to the Lornes seeking work 2 years prior. She was pleasant, but did not live with the Lornes, and she only accompanied them to Kildare last year and now to get away from her own family and home, Caitrin believed. She'd met Peggy's father but once, and that had been enough, that she wished never to repeat the occasion, as he was as ugly outside as he was internally, brash and loud, and stinking of stale mead, and shouting at Caitrin Lorne that his daughter was being cheated of wages. Gordon had argued with the man, threatened violence upon him even, telling him he paid Peggy what she was worth. He did not give up what Caitrin and Mary had immediately suspected, that Peggy was squirreling away coin for herself. Bored with Mary's banter with Fergus, and since Peggy now slept slumped against the side rail of the wagon bed, and wasn't available to pass the time with, Caitrin closed her eyes and concentrated on other sounds. The wagon itself put out several noises, dull, clanking sounds of wood groaning and creaking with each revolution of the wheels. The wheels themselves made little noise as they rolled over a blessedly level field of dry, golden grass. They moved now through the wide meadow of a glen, between hills that Caitrin could not name, but that were not steep, which rose gently upward in a thick forest of trees.